Prime Minister says no changes to election laws. District infrastructure, responsibility of local MPs. And Hela Provincial Assembly passes record budget.
This is National MTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining me for Monday's news. The Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has confirmed that there won't be any legislative changes to shorten the campaign period during this election. The Prime Minister was addressing the inaugural National Press Club in Port Moresby today.
Today, the Prime Minister said any changes in relation to the campaign period is the Electoral Commissioner's decision.
We are giving the flexibility and administrative powers to the Electoral Commissioner, and it is entirely up to him whether he maintains it at 4 weeks or 8 weeks, maximum of 8 weeks. But we have said minimum of 4 weeks, maximum of 8 weeks. So it gives him a lot of flexibility it may be as if he sees that the general conduct of the elections something that is having difficulty managing it, then he has to be given the flexibility of making that administrative decision.
And he confirms that there will be no legislative changes to shorten the campaign period.
So it is not going to be legislated by law. The campaign period is not going to be legislated by law, minimizing the number of weeks. So that is not on the agenda for this coming parliament session.
With regards to LLG elections, NEC has made a decision on their fees, but the dates of the election is still up for discussion.
That I can confirm that their fees will remain the same. So there is no increase for the nomination fees for the councillors. Yes, the LLG elections, that it's going to be delayed for 12 months. Because if it were to go ahead with the national elections, some of the councillors, and we're getting reports from many of the wards throughout the country, that they will have only served 4 years over a 5-year term, meaning that they have not fully served their term as councillors in many of these wards. So they've requested, and we are getting that reports back through the elected members of parliament, that they want this deferred for 1 year so they can complete a 5-year term for the ward councillors.
Sarah Aupong, National MTV News.
Last week, the acting Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, William Dim, raised concerns over budget cuts to overseas missions. Today at the inaugural Press Club series, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill said overseas missions were unnecessarily overspending and the government was cutting down costs.
In a media statement sent out on the 12th of this month, Acting Secretary for Department of Foreign Affairs, William Dim, said overseas missions and posts have particular financial requirements and constraints which challenge the basic operations of posts, and that operating expenditures for overseas missions had been cut by 15 million kina. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, when answering a question on the issue, responded saying that most overseas missions were overspending.
To increase efficiency in the department without having to increase its budget. And I think it's important that some of our embassies, there will be some overall changes very soon, because some of our embassies, their representation has been there for quite an extended period of time.
The Prime Minister said cost-cutting was the proper thing to do because most overseas missions were living beyond their means. He also said that no mission would be closed, and this was also a concern for the Acting Secretary.
Funding for the embassies, what we have now directed is the Finance Department will directly handle the distributions of the funds directly to the embassy. So they are not waiting for Foreign Affairs to reallocate funds that are going to run these embassies throughout the countries that we have. There will certainly be no closure of any embassies anywhere at all. We'll continue to maintain the numbers that we have because we're already underrepresented anyway.
Acting Secretary Dim said that cost-saving measures were to be implemented in such a manner that it would not affect their core businesses and effectiveness abroad. Adelaide Xerox Curry, National MTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the development of roads and airstrips at district levels remain the responsibility of elected members. Mr. O'Neill said his government has, over the last 4 years, injected close to 20 million kina into each district through the District Support Improvement Program funds. Thus, it is up to the local MPs to invest in the development of these basic infrastructures.
The initiative to improve road access and transportation services into rural areas has been one of the government's goals, which was set up in 2012 during the Alata Accord in Milne Bay Province. Since then, local members have been developing road networks in their districts with funding help from the national government.
Now, government blaming the policy, using this money talk clearly. Also, infrastructure and priority of this fund. Maybe limiting expenditure or infrastructure, education, health, law and order. Now, all SME inside law 1 district. So suppose all leaders is spending money in budgeting money blow good, and by enough only making sure some infrastructure challenges, and you to talk land law 1 district and molina blow karam some blah.
But despite public critics on the focus of infrastructure development in Port Moresby, Lae and Mount Hagen, the Prime Minister said there is small but significant improvement in transportation services in many districts in the last 4 years.
Miss Awe also plenty time you may look all infrastructure. Me to talk 40 years of neglect. No got maintenance, no got care. So, you may fix him one player.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said MPs of areas that can be accessed only by planes must focus primarily on building airstrips for their people. Thakla Gunga, National MTV News.
Over the weekend in Lae, Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare gave a humorous and nostalgic observation of the history of the Pangu Party and PNG politics. Sir Michael, who was the guest of honor at the Pangu Party fundraising dinner at the Lae Yacht Club, told a packed audience that he blamed the Morabians for influencing his path to politics. And using a few Morabian terms, Sir Michael said post-colonial Morabian valued 3 things: God Oranutu, the Lutheran faith and Pangu Party. Sir Michael went to school in Finschhafen, where he met many of the founding fathers of PNG politics. The Independent Consumer and Competition Commission anticipates it will cut down on travel costs in its operations in Madang Province. This follows the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between ICCC and the Madang Provincial Administration and Port Moresby today. The MOU paves way for an office to be established in the province.
The MOU signing will enable ICCC to have full-time personnel in Madang to represent the Commission and the provincial administration to serve the interests of businesses and consumers in Madang. This business development officer will monitor and enforce functions of the ICCC in close collaboration with the Commission's Momase Regional Office.
Conducting awareness, and we tend to realize that I think there is a lot of cost involved in terms of getting into the provinces. As a result of this, we decided to now share resources with the provinces, and I think I am pleased today to announce that Madang Provincial Government is the first to come on board.
Other responsibilities of the BDO include planning and conducting awareness and education programs targeting local businesses and consumers, and ensuring public transport operators are charging the approved amount of transport fees.
We realized that we needed to find a partner that we need to very much work with, so that our responsibility, as much as we are providing the services, we have to be fair to our people.
Madang is the first province for such arrangements. ICCC is liaising with provincial administrations of Milne Bay, Enga and Morobe for similar arrangements. Thakla Gunga, National MTV News.
Due to the poor communication network in Bougainville, authorities are yet to confirm the extent of damages following the 7.9 magnitude earthquake yesterday. Speaking to MTV today, South Bougainville MP Timothy Masiu, who was in Port Moresby yesterday, said a government team has already been deployed to assess the damages, and a clearer picture of the extent of damages should emerge tomorrow.
We still don't know the magnitude of the disaster, the effects that this very big earthquake has caused to the properties and the livelihood in Bougainville, especially in South Bougainville. At this stage, no loss of life has been reported, no major casualties or fatalities. We still need to confirm that. 3 children were washed away by the landslip. They were carried away. 2 were picked up as soon as it happened, but one of them was in the mud itself, and they only saw the fingers sticking out, and they dug up the child from there, the little one. And I think the child is alive now. Yeah.
All 3 of them are alive?
They are all alive, yes.
Another asylum seeker charged for sexual assault by local authorities on Manus, and more details on yesterday's 7.9 magnitude earthquake from our reporter on the ground. Those stories and more when we come back. Welcome back. Police in Manus province have yet again arrested and charged a non-refugee for raping a 19-year-old grade 9 female student in Lorengau. Acting Provincial Police Commander Senior Inspector David Yapu says the suspect, Rajiv Rajendran, aged 31 from Sri Lanka, sexually assaulted the victim last Tuesday. Manus police say the Sri Lankan national booked a room at the Harbourside Hotel in Lorengau town, where he took the victim and allegedly raped her 3 times. The 19-year-old victim escaped but fainted at Lorengau Riverside. She was later taken to the hospital. PPC Yapu said he has warned the refugees several times to respect the locals and the law of the country, as his officers will not hesitate to deal with those foreigners who break the laws. In court news, a child sexual assault case was dismissed by the Leh District Court after police failed to produce the complainant this morning. The assault is alleged to have occurred at Engau compound in November last year. The victim was 12 years old at the time. Despite laying a complaint, the parents of the girl failed to turn up in court this morning. Magistrate Tara Dawai made the ruling after Leh police had failed to produce the complainant at 2 separate court sittings. A bridge that links thousands of people from inland Wau and Bulolo of Morbe province has been cut off by floodwaters. Part of the Timini bridge was washed away last night, leaving people and vehicles stranded. Some of the businesses affected by the damage include chicken and egg supplier Zineg and mining company MMJV.
This is a problematic section of the Leh-Bulolo highway. In 2013, floodwaters washed away part of the road. The bridge survived, but last night, floods washed away the base of the bridge, cutting off the link.
No morning now, everyone no morning, so I'm proud of him.
Locals have built a temporary bridge and have been charging pedestrians who have no choice but to pay a fee to pass. Works engineers arrived on the scene this morning to assess the damage. They said it could take at least 3 days to assemble a temporary Bailey bridge to allow for vehicles to cross.
First floor water comes strong to us, so we will wait until water come down now. Flood and come down go normal now. We will carry out river training works plus bank protection.
The value of the Leh-Bulolo highway is many times underestimated, but it's a road that links Leh city to 2 towns, Wau and Bulolo. Chicken and egg suppliers Zineg, mining company MMJV and Bulolo Forest Products also rely heavily on this road. This morning, Morobe Governor Kelly Naru went to the site. This latest damage adds to a hefty bill of 5 million kina from last year's infrastructure damage in various parts of the province.
There's much more work that needs to be done in terms of river training and some other major works which is going to take time. But immediate need to ensure we give access to vehicular traffic to flow in and out will commence as of tomorrow.
Scott White, National MTV News, Ley.
Hela Provincial Assembly has passed a historical budget of 442 million kina. The 2017 budget is an increase of 45% compared to 2016. Hela Governor Francis Potape says the budget is primarily focused to connect rural communities.
The Hela Provincial Assembly met on Friday and handed down the 2017 budget. Chaired by Governor Francis Potape, the budget outlines the need to bridge remote Hela to the urban. Road projects eats up nearly a quarter of the budget.
In this year's budget, more funds have gone to all the remote areas that have never gone any government money in the lifetimes. We want to put the quota from here to all the main stations around here, to Halagoli, to Hoyebia. Quota has already gone to Dowley.
For the first time, a budget book was provided outlining the breakdown of funding allocation. Other sectors include health, agriculture, sports, policing, and public servant support.
We are putting almost 80 million kina. 80 million kina, which is almost 18%, will go towards buying the land and putting buildings for public servants. Public servants for the provincial administration, for police, for teachers, either in the headquarters and also out in the districts.
A key funding allocation in the Hela budget is to LLG presidents. About 7.2 million will be released once the budget is approved by Treasury.
So we put in big money down for the first time directly to LLGs as well, because the national government has withdrawn that funding.
Present to witness the budget was Hela Provincial Administrator William Bando and members of the Assembly.
One leaders, Mr. Immigrant John, Ogata councillors, Ogata President, John Hen, now Ogata people of Hela John Hen want them you, support want them you, now work want them you, and you budget, big budget you put in on.
Governor Potape will present the 27th budget to Treasury Minister Patrick Pruitt in the coming days. Jack Lopave Jr., National MTV News, Tari.
Apart from the 2017 budget passed by Hela Assembly, nearly 150 million is being held back by the government. Hela Governor Francis Potape says this is due to landowner court cases. These funds are earmarked as infrastructure development grants.
Outstanding IDG money for 2013, 2014, 15, 16, all these funds have been held up. What I'm only putting here is the IDG money for 2017 and what is held by the National Court Trust. But what is there, which is a paper money now, everything has been converted to paper money because the funds have to be used for anything. So the future government will have to give us 150 million or 160 million plus in our outstanding IDG funds.
Two warring tribes in Hela province have surrendered their guns and reconciled. Over the weekend, tribe leaders in Tagali signed a peace agreement to signify gun surrender and stop fights. The signing was witnessed by Hela Governor Francis Potape, Hela Provincial Administrator William Bando, local magistrate and members of the joint forces in the call-out operation. More than 10 homemade guns were surrendered, with leaders promising to hand over high-powered guns to authorities.
You come now, number one, something. All of you who are going past this call out, me with the business. No gun politicizing this call out. And special operation. You got the names of the people. Give them the time, the deadline. Bring your weapon now. Bring your land cruiser now. High-powered weapon, you want them to carry away. Bring it now. Carry it out. No gun money, mess around line. No gun the man and own in Hela province.
Coffee growers in the Highlands are experiencing increases in transportation costs due to poor road conditions. Coffee Industry Corporation CEO Charles Dambui says the recent deterioration of the highway is affecting the coffee supply chain. Mr. Dambui adds that trucking companies and PMVs are charging very high fares to smallholder coffee farmers before transporting their coffee to the main roads.
The Chief Executive Officer of PNG Coffee Industry Corporation, Charles Dambui, says coffee exporters in the highlands may lose their overseas buyers as most of their coffees are not exported on time. This is because of late delivery of coffee bags at coffee buying points. A combination of the deteriorating state of roads and the high transportation cost in the highlands has affected the supply chain.
They contribute almost 90% of the total production. And the only way to get the coffee out from those big coffee growing provinces are by road.
Smallholder farmers remain the largest contributors of coffee to the world market. Most of them come from the rural interior, where road infrastructure remain a daily struggle. Trucking companies are charging extra cost because of the continuous wear and tear on their vehicles, making it a growing concern for both coffee farmers and the exporters.
About 2% of the road conditions are very good. Otherwise, the entire Highlands highways, the road conditions are at risk, I would say. And that has actually affected most of our coffee business.
This has placed a huge burden on both the smallholder coffee farmers and the exporters. Smallholder farmers spend money on transporting their coffee bags to the nearest coffee buying point, yet most of the bags don't arrive on time. Coffee buyers and exporters are now feeling the pinch of the loss of confidence from their overseas buyers. Mataluwis, National MTV News, Ley.
And now looking at our finance news, the kina opened unchanged at 0.3150 US dollars in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying 0.3075 US dollars, 0.4042 Australian dollars, 0.2848 euro and 34.9 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, cocoa and copra closed lower, while gold and coffee closed the day higher. Palm oil, crude oil and copper closed the day higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 95 points higher, the ASX closed at 25 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 19 points lower. You're with National EMTV News, more local stories and news-making headlines overseas when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, at least 32 people were killed and dozens more injured on Saturday night when 9 coaches of a passenger train derailed in India's southern state of Andhra Pradesh in the latest disaster to hit the vast and accident-prone state railways. The express train from Jagdalpur to Bhubaneswar derailed near Kuneri station, around 30 kilometers outside the town of Raigarh.
District Collector of Raigad District in India's eastern state of Odisha said today relief and rescue operations were in full swing to save as many lives as possible. Rescuers pulled many injured passengers from the derailed coaches and looked for survivors sawing through the mangled coaches. A team of doctors was at the site treating the injured. Investigation was underway on the cause of the accident. In the last serious accident, 150 people died when a train derailed late last year in Uttar Pradesh. India recorded 27,581 railway deaths in 2014, the most recent year for which figures are available, with most victims falling from or being struck by moving trains. Vanessa Knight, MTV World News.
Chile is under a state of emergency as more than a dozen wildfires that have scorched as of Saturday nearly 80,000 hectares threaten to encroach on towns, factories and vineyards. Firefighters, forestry service personnel and members of the military are battling at least 18 separate blazes in the center and south of the country that have been fueled by strong winds and a heat wave. Some 40 homes have been destroyed according to the National Emergency Office. And reports say there are a total of around 50 fires, including those not in control. One of the largest has consumed 24,000 hectares in and around Pumank, a rural area of 140 kilometers south of the capital Santiago that is near some of Chile's vineyards. The head of Chile's CONAF Forestry Service, Aaron Kevia, said the fires were caused by humans, but that it could not be determined whether they were set intentionally. The White House said on Sunday that it is in the early stages of talks to fulfill President Donald Trump's pledge to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, an action that has sparked Palestinian anger. Washington's embassy is in Tel Aviv, as are most foreign diplomatic posts. Israel calls Jerusalem its eternal capital, but Palestinians also lay claim to the city as part of an eventual Palestinian state. Both sides cite religious, historical, and political claims.
Trump, who vowed during the 2016 presidential campaign to move the embassy, was due to speak by phone today with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the first call since the U.S. businessman turned politician took office last week Friday. Any decision to break with the status quo is likely to prompt protests from U.S. allies in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Egypt. The White House announcement came as the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met Jordan's King Abdullah in Amman today to discuss the embassy move. Abbas has previously stated that the peace process could be damaged if Trump goes ahead with his plan. The U.S. Congress passed a law in 1995 describing Jerusalem as capital of Israel and saying it should not be divided. But successive Republican and Democratic presidents have used their foreign policy powers to maintain the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv and to back negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians on the status of Jerusalem. In early December, then President Barack Obama renewed the presidential waiver until the beginning of June. It is unclear whether Trump would be able to legally override that waiver and go ahead with relocation of the embassy. U.S. diplomats say that despite the U.S. legislation, Washington's foreign policy is in practice broadly aligned with that of the United Nations and other major powers, which do not view Jerusalem as Israel's capital and do not recognize Israel's annexation of Arab East Jerusalem after its capture in the 1967 Middle East War. Israel approved building permits today for hundreds of homes in 3 East Jerusalem settlements in expectation that Trump will roll back on his previous administration's criticism of such projects. Vanessa Knight, MTV World News.
Morbe Provincial Education Division will now focus on the delay in the elementary teachers' salary, which has been denied for more than 6 years. The Provincial Program Advisor for Morbe, Keith Jerome, is now calling on PNG Education Institute and the Department of Education to pay the outstanding salary of elementary teachers. The teachers in Morbe haven't been paid their salary after attending a number of trainings to become qualified teachers.
The Education Program Advisor for Morbe will meet with the elementary officers in the province between March and April this year to identify areas that continue to affect the delay in the elementary teacher's salary. The delay has been an ongoing concern since 2010. Jerome said the elementary sector in Morbe, together with PNGEI and the Department of Education, should clarify the delay.
We have not given any prominence to the elementary, thinking that they are small, they are little people, but they are the basic foundation for the country's prosperity.
Last year, the teachers sought answers from the education authorities over their unpaid salary, but the responses were negative. The teachers are still teaching without pay.
All big line be milo must be almost look down na who seems like something lo albe mi blogeda.
The Teaching Service Commission's requirement for all elementary teachers starting this year is to have a grade 12 qualification in order to teach. The program advisor had met and notified the Teaching Service Commission and the Department of Education that all Morbe elementary teachers teaching with grade 8 and 10 qualifications will not be withdrawn from service.
If they can't and if they refuse to upgrade their qualifications, then they are telling me that they have to go, because they have to meet the requirements.
Julie Badui Owa, National MTV News, Lay.
You're with Monday's news. Among stories yet to come, Rugby League World Cup CEO was in the country and is pleased with what he saw. That story led Trukai Sports, which is up next. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. After meeting Sports Minister Justin Tichenko, Rugby League World Cup CEO Andrew Hill is pleased with the preparations going forward before the games in October. Hill visited the City Hall, sponsors, sporting facilities and other significant bodies. Tichenko said while the National Football Stadium will be used for all the games, other stadiums will be used for team training purposes. Godwin Eki reports.
Visiting Port Moresby last week, Rugby League World Cup CEO Andrew Hill met with Sports Minister Justin Tichenko to discuss the status of the preparations and planning. Hill visited the Port Moresby City Hall and met with sponsors of Rugby League World Cup and other necessary bodies in making sure all parties were actively involved to make the game a success.
Andrew Hill, the CEO of Rugby League World Cup, is here. Just talking to all the sponsors, City Hall, me as the Minister, just coordinating everything ready for the games in end of October and November this year. It's very exciting for the country and we look forward to the games ahead, America, Ireland and Wales. We've got a lot of work to do in between, but the good thing is it's going to be much easier to run and operate than the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup.
Tichenko said while the stadium is ready for the different teams that will participate in PNG pool matches, training areas will also be provided for these teams.
So infrastructure set. Now it's just getting on with rolling out the programs, activities, promotions, lead-up activities, all that sort of stuff. Bills of the city, getting all our rugby league fraternity involved in different activities to the lead-up of the World Cup.
PNG will feature as host partner for the first time in the nation's history, while looking to capitalise on all the help and support it can receive. The Rugby League World Cup competition will start on the 27th of October and finish on the 2nd of December. Godwin Eki, National MTV Sports.
Papua New Guinea international Nigel Dabinyaba has been training with the Malaysian football club Penang FA in the Malaysian Super League to get a head start on preparation for the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia Stage 3 qualifiers later in March. Dabinyaba made the switch after a short stint in the New Zealand Premiership with Canterbury United Dragons FC.
Nigel Dabinyaba took part in last year's OFC Nations Cup, which held the Stage 2 of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia qualifiers for Oceania. The couples made history at the tournament, reaching the final for the first time ever. Dabinyaba's performance in the regional competition soon caught the attention of foreign professional coaches and led to a short stint with Western Pride FC in Australia. Dabinyaba's club career has followed somewhat similar path to childhood neighbour and fellow countryman Raymond Gunemba. Both were scouted for semi-professional Besta United FC before joining Hekari United, where the two contributed heavily to the side's success in 2014 OFC Champions League campaign. In 2015, Gunemba and Dabinyaba both made the move to Ley City Dwellers, a club formed by Gunemba's father to represent their city and province. The young side allowed both players to set up as leaders and build a positive culture in the new team. Their success in the Telecom National Soccer League earned their side a place at their first 2016 OFC Champions League. After another successful domestic season, the Dwellers will return to the 2017 edition of the competition. Both Dabinyaba and Gunemba will rejoin the couples in March when they face Tahiti in the home and away matches, in hopes of continuing to the final of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia Stage 3 qualifiers. Shane Soroya, National MTV Sports.
A meeting that turned into a heated discussion between two rugby union boards of Ben Frame and Stephen Kami was to bring everyone involved to compromise and agree on a new constitution. While Stephen called for a new constitution, Ben Frame, on the other hand, was reluctant to approve any decision but wanted to consult with his board member before he could come up with any conclusions. Meanwhile, playing the mediator between the two boards, Sports Minister Justin Tichenko, without fear or favor, wanted the two parties to solve the matter and get their acts right before the AGM. Godwin Eki reports.
I can't do anything.
Sports Minister Justin Tichenko late last week called a meeting for PNG Rugby Union between Ben Frame and Stephen Kami to discuss and agree on a new constitution.
Stephen was trying to do was assist them and fix it. So it's all correct, or else if they have acted, because they're incorporated, they have to follow the constitution. If they were not incorporated, they can do what they like. But because they're incorporated, Rugby Union is incorporated, they have to follow what the Constitution says in their laws and bylaws.
Stephen Kami, who was willing to compromise with Ben Frame to go ahead with a new election in favour of the new Constitution, Frame decided to discuss the matter first with his board before any further decisions.
He basically thinks that they're in charge and they've got all the support. So there's no need to compromise, there's no need to go through this process because they think they are in charge and they're rightfully recognised by all the authorities.
Meanwhile, Frame, who called a press earlier this month, was against the illegal election of Stephen Kami, which he said was wrong by law.
The illegal executives who have appointed an unadvertised position of CEO to run an administration that is not recognised by World Rugby, Oceania Rugby or PNG RFU, whilst illegally operating out of the PNG RFU head office.
Tichenko says while Stephen Kami was willing to compromise, in the recent meeting Ben Frame was non-compliant.
So what we want to do is correct it so it's done properly and then call an AGM where everybody can have a decision of who they want to run rugby union for the future.
While an AGM is set for the 25th of this month, it is uncertain if it will go ahead and the two parties are not cooperating with each other.
The Rugby Union World Body can suspend Papua New Guinea and say bad luck. You can't get your act together, you're all over the place, you're not taking the sport further, it's causing more problems than it's worth, we don't need you, you're suspended till you get your act together.
Godwin Aki, National MTV Sports.
You're watching Trukai Sports. More sporting news ahead. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. A stroke of luck again for Cronulla Sharks fullback Ben Barber, as he has signed a deal 5 days ago, allowing him to return to the field on the 13th match of this season. Barber was suspended last year, 2 days after the Sharks gained their historic premiership when he tested positive of cocaine. As it was the second consecutive year that he tested positive, NRL facilitated his suspension immediately, which saw the star fullback off to Thailand for rehabilitation. And in the last 2 months, the club went out of their way to make sure they get him back for at least some part of the 2017 season, as per the successful cut down of 12-month suspension to 12-round suspension. His suspension carries through to training sessions as well, with the fullback's non-participation in team trainings despite insistence from the club. NRL is firm on its decision that the earliest possible return for Barber is round 13. Adding to the 12-match ban is an annual salary cut of 5% that will carry right through the season. Meanwhile, his contract will be submitted to the NRL for approval and registration, according to a statement released by the club. Still on NRL, some clubs have already announced their squads for the Auckland Nines Rugby League tournament, which will fall on the 4th to the 5th of February. It is confirmed Rugby League sensations like Jonathan Thurston, Sean Johnson and Jared Hayne will be making their appearances. And even former New Zealand international Ruben Wiki will be bringing some of his panache to the Warriors lineup as well. Other clubs will be announcing their squads in the coming weeks. Brazilian soccer club Chapecoense took to the field for the first time again since a November plane crash killed most of the team. The November 28 crash in Colombia killed 19 players, its entire coaching staff and members of the front office. 22 new players were named to the team since the crash and faced off against another local team in a friendly.
The match was held at Chapecoense's home stadium and is intended to be a tribute to the team members who died. Goalkeeper Jackson Foreman, one of only 6 to survive the crash, was on hand to watch the event. He appeared in a wheelchair holding the Copa Sudamericana, which was awarded to the team after the crash. Other survivors, including Neto and Alan Ruchel, were also at the match. The friendly against Palmeiras was the first game of the season for both sides, but it was much more about symbolism and emotion than sport for a club looking to bounce back from one of football's great tragedies. The game was halted in the 71st minute to allow fans to scream their now famous Vemos Chope, chanting tribute to the players and staff that perished in the plane crash in Colombia in November. The game that followed was hard fought, but with a scorching sun overhead, and both sides giving their squads their first run out of the season, it was never more than a glorious training match. Palmeiras scored the opening goal after 9 minutes, but the home side struck back with an equalizer. The match ended in a 2-2 draw and all the takings were given to the families of the deceased. Elijah Levet, National MTV Sports.
And that's a wrap on True Kai Sports. Up next, your weather details. Don't go away.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Looking at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region, fine, becoming cloudy of rain showers and possible thunderstorms in Port Moresby, cloudy with showers and possible thunderstorms in Daru and Kerma, cloudy with afternoon showers or 2 in Alotau and few showers and thunderstorms in Popondetta. In the Mumasi region, morning shower or 2 in Ley, fine, becoming cloudy at times with chances of showers in Medang and Vanimo, and cloudy periods with chances of light rain showers in Wewak. In the New Guinea Islands region, fine although cloudy at times in Lorengau, rain showers in Kavieng and Buka, and few showers and thunderstorms in Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe. And in the Highlands region, cloudy with light to moderate rain showers, then morning fog in all centres. Forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerema, to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to Samarai Island, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Island, and with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 1 to 2 meters. Waters of Samarai Island to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Finschhafen through Vitia Strait, Seasi Islands to Long Island, with waters west of Long Island to Medang, to Bogia, to Wewak, to Aitape, to Vanimo, to northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of New Ireland to New Britain, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters, and waters of Bougainville, seas of 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Ocean forecast for PNG areas. In the Coral Sea, sea slight with southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots. In the Solomon Seas, seas light to moderate with southwest winds at 10 to 20 knots, tending to clockwise wind. In the Bismarck Sea, seas light to moderate with northwest to west winds at 15 to 20 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas light to moderate with northwest to west winds at 10 to 20 knots.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Now recapping our main stories again. Prime Minister says no changes to election laws. District infrastructure remains responsibility of local MPs. And Hela Provincial Assembly passes record budget. And that's the news, sports and weather for Monday, January 23rd, 2017. On behalf of the entire news crew, pleasant viewing. Good night.